Here we have yet again the beautiful Pixels on Target Voodoo S. Mini handheld thermal, monocular, dedicated scope, clip-on. Talked about the specifications in my previous video, so I'd encourage you to go watch that. Even though it's very poorly edited, but just kind of going back over it again, you have an IR laser, very easy button layout, objective focus, adjustable parallax, Wilcox shoe interface that allows you to be able to work with Wilcox FTS mounts, as I'm showing you here right now. The beauty about these mounts is that it allows you to engage and disengage the thermal without you really removing it from your rifle itself. You just want to make sure that your optical center is around 1.5 inches in order for you to be within the collimation height itself. You can see here, you can very easily either engage, disengage, and re-engage just with the flick of a wrist. Makes it to where it's very easy to use. And I have this now mounted with another first-person point of view, kind of putting this into action. Very easy to use, and works damn well. As I said previously, this can also be used as a dedicated thermal rifle scope, although I really don't do it because it's 1x optical and has clip-on capability. However, I did find some use with using this as like an offset thermal RDS, and I find in that way it works pretty well. But sometimes just because you can, doesn't mean that you should. This is what your expectations are. It looks super cool. You can take it from your helmet, use it as a handheld, throw it on your rifle, any day optic you want to put it in front of, and be super awesome. But expectations don't always work into reality. So first we'll get into a little bit of image quality from just a handheld perspective. You can see that BAE core is putting in a lot of work. One thing that I really enjoy about BAE core and censored thermals is the very realistic depth perceiving image that it gives you. This is unlike a lot of Chinese thermals that have more of a two-dimensional, almost like a Borderlands look to the image itself. With BAE cores, if you have good image processing, good lens geometry on the objective lens, you get an absolutely just magical image. It's very realistic, it's depth perceiving, has something that I call image density. The image is It's providing a lot of information from your background and also from things that are producing thermal signatures as opposed just to the ambient environments themselves. It comes for a very realistic, depth perceiving, just fantastic image. When it comes to LWIR sensors, BAE is definitely the king compared to any other company putting out thermal sensors right now. Just look at that. I mean, the image speaks for itself. Just because you have something that's clip-on capable does not mean that it's going to be compatible with every optic you put it in front of. There are going to be some inherent setbacks because of the wider field of view of something like this. With wide field of view clip-on capable optics, if you're going to be using a fixed powered optic, you want something that's relatively low magnification, like this Trijicon 1.5 by 16 times ACOG. You can use 3x magnifiers with G33s, but it still doesn't give you the best results. Best results for units like this are going to be coming from the use of LPVOs. So if you can see here, the reason why is because of the back-end demagnification. Something like this is going to have a decent amount of back-end demag, but not enough to where you can support a lot of magnification. That's why LPVOs are absolute king for units like this, because you're using all the intermediaries between 1 and 10 times, where you can get a full field of view and a very pretty image, or you can get something to where after you PID this, you can just get a little bit closer even though the image itself is going to be degraded. In this shot, I'm going to be doing some panning around, looking at various objects that are close and far away like this tree, maybe 10, 15 yards away from my current position, going all the way up to around 10 times magnification. These donkeys are maybe around 30, 40 yards away, just kind of to show you what the image is looking like through this vortex 1 to 10. Doing just donkey things out there. And we'll zoom out a little bit here, and we'll start to kind of just pan around into the background environment. This house is 400, 500 yards away. And we start to look at a little bit more long-range implements. We have some cows that are around 650 yards. The house is between 800 and 850. We'll do some more panning around, going back close. And then now we'll just kind of show the detail potential for something like this, just how ultra-realistic that image is, and how close you can focus it. Oh, there we have the RH-25. It's like the brother that got his GED as opposed to the one that has a doctorate. showing some details of my buddy's face. Again, the BAE processing core for this is just absolutely amazing for an LWIR, which stands for Long Wave Infrared Uncooled Sensor. It's a very sensitive image, especially on good thermal days. The truck here is roughly between 60 and 70 yards away. This house we're about to look in the background, that one's about 900 yards away. It's quite far. You're still getting a usable image. We'll take a look at this post. Right now, since I can see the top and bottoms of that display, that's starting off at about 1.5 times mag, going to about 3 or 4. We'll take a look at my buddy walking around being my thermal model. Zoom in a little bit more. As you can see, the image does start to degrade, but it's still quite usable. Going through some of the color palettes here. I'm personally a fan of Black Hot. Just Black Hot gives a more photorealistic image, and that's how I'm mostly determining how good the image quality and the image processing on a thermal like this is. Taking a look at some more Gucci shots of his rifle and zooming back out. Now we'll kind of zoom into these cows. So that cow, again, is between 650 and 700 yards away. You can actually see a dog that's walking up to it. And for something that has as wide a field of view as this, it has a decent amount of magnification support. So we'll go all the way up to around 10 times magnification. So if you knew what your target was, you could easily PID to that distance. With a unit like this, you can take that shot. A little bit more again in front of the Vortex Razor 1 to 10. We'll look at some stuff close up and then take a look at some stuff further out as well, as I'm making my fiance get out in the cold and hold a gun. She just cares about me so much. Let her walk into frame over here, and we'll start doing some zooming in. So right now I'm at 1 times magnification. As you can see, all clearly defined borders of that display itself, and that's again because of the back end demag that has to match the front end magnification of the scope itself. And that essentially is what's going to allow you to support magnification from your day optic without pixelating out either too early or for stuff that's longer range, which we'll get into here pretty shortly. We'll start cycling through all the different color palettes. Some of the other adjustments, which I'm not really going to talk about too many adjustments in this particular video because I talked a little bit more in depth about some of the features and the color palettes in my previous videos. And we'll just do some more zooming in here, adjusting the brightness to account for filming behind the scope. So even though the image itself is degraded, you can still see a decent amount of detail whenever you're zooming in, especially on something producing a thermal image. We'll go through some of the color palettes, black edge detect, white edge detect. Zoom in again. I find that color palette is relatively useless unless you're in a big open field, and it's just for detection, not for positive identification of what you're looking at. White hot is what most people are used to, but again, I'm a little bit of a black hot snob because I like the photorealistic image. That's what I have the most experience with since I've been playing with thermals. Here we'll start to do some panning around pretty soon. We'll take a look at some objects that are slightly further away and looking at the zoom potential of the scope, kind of like we did in the previous segment of this video. Trees, and again, like I mentioned about handheld use, BAE image processors are just ultra realistic. It looks more like a black and white video or like a high-fom white phosphor PVS 14. The image is very detailed, very aesthetically pleasing, and it allows you to pull a lot of information from your background. That paired with the 60 Hz refresh rate, panning is very smooth. It's not really choppy, like say something like the RH25 that not only has a lower refresh rate, but also has some a rolling shutter lag to where you'll see some odd distortion, especially on things that are creating 90-degree angles. That crane from this position is about 300 yards away, between 275 and 300 yards away. We'll zoom all the way back down, zoomed into it. said this before and I'll say it again, this is not a long distance clip-on thermal. This is a short to intermediate due to the field of view, which is 15 degrees. What makes a long distance clip-on thermal is going to be a big front germanium lens and then resulting back in demagnification either optically or digitally to make it 1x unity, resulting in a very small field of view. So if I held, say, this Voodoo M to my eye, I'm looking at a display, it's about the size of my thumb if it's unmagnified. I have it here in front of a Night Force 2.5 to 20 by 50 NX. Looking at this house is 680 yards away. You can still see a lot of the display. The trigger cam kind of cut it off, but something like this can support 20x magnification, still have a usable image. Mountains in the background, 17.5 miles away. Now we have this EOTech XELR Mark 1.5, looking at a 2M away target at 200 yards at like 20x mag. It's still a usable image. It's because it's a small field of view, big front lens, a lot of back-end demag. So what makes a unit like this so special is that it has optical collimation in there, which means that there's no real adjustments need to be made. Shooting this target 25 yards with the thermal disengaged and with it engaged, points of impact on the paper are the same. And we'll go to the steel here, unengaged, then engaged, points of impact are still the same. With civilian units, that's not the case. So this unit seems to be too good to be true. So, what's the catch? Well, that. There are other options in this category, like the AGM Stinger 640 and the very popular RH25, but they're not a mil-spec thermal. They have their own drawbacks in their price category. It's the reason why something like this costs $15,000. It's because it is a DoD contract, optically collimated thermal that has to perform according to battlefield specifications, winning contracts with UK Royal Marines. It is, if whenever companies are making for the Department of Defense, if it doesn't perform according to what they advertise, they don't win contracts. I can say without a doubt I have absolutely no regrets buying this thermal. It's small, it's light, wide enough field of view for a handheld / helmet mounted option, narrow enough for clip-on usage. I've taken this negative 30 degrees, I've shot coyotes at 250 plus yards, and I shot a prairie dog at 275. It is absolutely fantastic. Image quality is amazing, a lot of built-in features. It's just the absolute tippy top of the spear. So whenever you have dealers tell you, oh, the RH25 is the best, it's not. It's the best that they can make a margin on. Because as with anything in this category or in life, you really do get what you pay for. Alright everyone, like and subscribe. I'm trying to grow this channel to consistently bring you really high quality information on this niche that's not really available in the space. And I have something I think a lot of people will thoroughly enjoy coming up here very soon.